Hi and welcome to The Practice Gap, the podcast for closing the gap between the practice you have and the one that you want. I'm Elizabeth, a chiropractor, a business owner, coach and entrepreneur, on a mission to help you move from frustration and overwhelm to clarity, focus and joy in practice. Hi and welcome to the studio, Bill Esteb. Bill Esteb has been on my would love to talk to list for a very long time. I had one of his books when I went to chiropractic school 30 years ago, and it was called The Patient's Point of View. You are not a chiropractor, so please could you start by telling the audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, my background is in the media. I worked at advertising agencies and digital audio recording studios and things like that, and radio. And I was working for a film production company in Colorado, and two chiropractors moved in next door to our production offices. They were chiropractors, and we heard stories about chiropractors, so frankly, we kind of ignored them until one day they were carrying videos under their arm and in the hallway, and you know, we do video, and what's going on? And so they explained that they were getting ready to harness this newfangled contraption called the VCR, the video cassette recorder, and use it for patient education purposes in chiropractic. And well, that's the kind of thing we do. And we struck up a conversation, and they suggested that if we wanted to work together to help create this revolutionary new piece of patient education, that someone from our production team should attend one of their seminars. So I got the short straw as the writer and producer of the company, and I flew to Spokane, Washington, and attended my first 3-day Renaissance seminar back in it was January of 1981. And what I heard during that seminar not only resonated with me personally, but it totally made sense to me. And I went back and suggested to our team that we help these guys create their video. And 9 months later, the Renaissance Peter Graves video showed up. And as part of the research to create that video, I began chiropractic care myself just to find out what this adjustment was and just what was going on here. And so I started care in February of 1981 and have been under care since then, receiving weekly adjustments since that. So it's been 45 years of regular chiropractic care. So while I'm a patient, I'm certainly not a normal patient. So I guess that's the short story.
What was it that made you like when you first came into the chiropractic office and decided to become a chiropractic patient? How can you remember, like, what made you like tick, this is kind of cool, or like what fired you up about it?
Well, you know, that's what's kind of interesting about my particular journey, because I entered the chiropractic practice as a research project. So I didn't have an obvious ache or pain or something that you would normally consider something worthy of consulting a chiropractor for. So instead, I entered with, number one, I had this obligation to write this video script. But secondly, I'd say, and maybe even foremost, was the idea that I appreciated the philosophical underpinnings of the profession. In other words, this notion that the nervous system is the master system and controls the whole show was suddenly self-evident to me. I mean, that made total sense to me, although no one had ever said it like that before. So I was much more enamored by the philosophy of it, that that a stomach problem might manifest as a stomach problem, but what it may actually be is a brain to body, body to brain communication problem. So that made sense to me.
Mm.
And So the real drama, the real breakthroughs, the real I wouldn't call it a miracle, but those sorts of things happened later. So showing up on a non-symptomatic basis, I think, was probably the unique aspect of it.
Mm. For those since then 1981 until now, what are the biggest changes in the profession as when you look to it as a whole?
Well, I think the biggest change, and probably the most unfortunate change, is that we have that for many purposes, which probably don't need to be discussed here, that we have a growing number of chiropractors who go through the process of chiropractic college and emerge practicing a version of what I would call therapeutic chiropractic. Back in the day, let's say going back to the 1950s and 60s even, chiropractors were seen more as the family doctor, and whole families would show up. And what's happened in the period since is that increasingly people are showing up in chiropractic offices for back pain, headaches, spinal conditions, and it's not the whole family, it's the individual. It's a single member of the family. And because chiropractic has kind of taken on a medicalized spinal specialty, if you will, rather than a whole body phenomenon, uh, you don't see the family practice as you did, maybe 75, 80 years ago. So I think that's the most significant change. Now, that said, another significant change that has shown up is the fact that chiropractic is far more accepted today than it was 50, 75 years ago. I mean, it's not so much have you been to a chiropractor? It's which one have you been to? So, on one hand, there's kind of a more acceptance. On the negative side, there is a loss of what I would call the chiropractic philosophy of what really put chiropractic on the map in the first place.
Mm-hmm. How do you define chiropractic philosophy?
How do I define chiropractic
Or
philosophy?
what is, if you would explain to someone else what somebody has no idea what chiropractic is,
Oh, okay.
what is chiropractic philosophy?
Right. Well, the way I see it is that what chiropractors do is work with the nervous system, ensuring integrity between brain and body, body and brain. And chiropractors use an intervention called the adjustment, which is adding energy to opportune times and places along the spine to help reduce nervous system interference so the body can function as it was designed. And this entity, this issue that chiropractors provide an intervention to is typically called the vertebral subluxation. Vertebral meaning of the spine, and subluxation meaning a disconnect or a less light condition in which the body has embraced this vertebral subluxation as a response to physical, chemical, or emotional stress. So to me, vertebral subluxation is a gorgeous, creative response that the body uses in its attempt to accommodate stress. So I don't see subluxation as a bad thing necessarily, but merely a means that the body has used as a survival strategy to adapt to stress. So that's kind of the short answer.
Mm. If you had a younger doctor, if you would talk to somebody who had been, let's say, working for 2 years and are a little bit frustrated and wants to build a family-based care, like to have a family practice, what suggestions would you make to that person to make that happen?
Yeah, that's a big question. But a couple things come to mind. Number one, make sure that you have a clear identity. That is, you know that your purpose is not to adjust. Your purpose is adjusting patients helps manifest or advance your purpose. Um, and to be proud of being a chiropractor and that much like what I said earlier, is to avoid practicing therapeutic chiropractic. That is, I would make sure that every patient understands that while they've presented with headaches or back pain, you won't be treating headaches and back pain. That's the practice of medicine. Instead, what you'll be doing is resolving the structural and neurological cause of the headache or back pain. So we don't really treat that sort of condition. Although people who have headaches and back pain report delightful success with their their involvement in chiropractic. I would make sure that new practitioner had incredibly clear boundaries. In other words, they know what their responsibility is, and they know what the patient's responsibility is, and they don't make that vague or ambiguous. Poor boundaries is the cause of all kinds of challenges and frictions in a particular practice. I would make sure that every patient knew that they were buying the doctor's talent and not the doctor's time. I think there's quite a misunderstanding that somehow drawing out the patient visit and adding additional theatrics somehow communicates a greater value. And that's not been my experience. Most people are not living to get adjusted; they get adjusted so they can go live. So adjusting, getting in, getting out, and on with their life is something that you want to make sure that you communicate. I think the notion that thinking that enough new patients solves every problem it is a unfortunate belief, which is not true. I mean, when you have a lot of new patients, it can hide and cover up a lot of other misunderstandings or shortcomings in a practice. So new patients is rarely the problem. It's keeping patients, and that means explaining a bigger vision of chiropractic than merely pain relief. And I think the other issue would be that many chiropractors have a very short time horizon. In other words, they view the relationship as based upon how long it takes to resolve the patient's problem rather than an eternal view or a long-term view of seeing chiropractors as seeing patients as a uh, long-term relationship punctuated by periods of dormancy. So, those are just some of the things that come to mind just off the top of my head.
Mm. Um, if we go back a little bit here to setting boundaries, that was actually one of the things I talked with some of my younger colleagues yesterday during lunch that came up. When you talk about setting boundaries, could you give some examples of good ways you think to set boundaries? Okay, this is what I can do. This is my responsibility. This is yours. How do you have any good examples?
Yeah, this is a huge issue, and it's so subtle, so nuanced that many chiropractors don't see it or are oblivious to it. But examples of poor boundaries would include being emotionally invested in patient choices. In other words, we subtly change the report of findings from a report of your findings and a recommendation of care, we turn it into a sales presentation where we are hoping or emotionally invested in what the patient does. And so instead of showing up objective and neutral, as we would expect from a licensed professional, we show up, the chiropractors can show up as being emotionally invested in trying to produce a particular outcome or decision on the part of the patient. Spending more time than is necessary with the patient suggests a boundary issue. Downplaying significant findings of your examination would be a sign of poor boundaries. Softening or reducing your recommendations because you're seeking approval from the patient would be a boundary busting activity. Feeling defensive when patients indicate that they are frustrated with the pace of the recovery. That defensiveness shows that you're invested in something you can't control, namely how quickly you can revive the patient's ability to self-heal. Gosh, when you don't explain to patients how to disengage from the office, from the practice, that can be a form of poor boundaries, or allowing a patient to amass a large outstanding balance without expecting to be paid. That's a sign of poor boundary. Gosh, does that help?
Yeah, it's very excellent. One of the thing that comes up as seen as a problem with a lot of newer doctors and also people who have been working for a long time, when the people who pay cash, they're not insurance patients. They might be very easy to make a plan for somebody with insurance, but they take the money issue, and when they give recommendations of care, they think about the patient's money or the cost. And so I have two questions about that. I'm sure that's pretty common. Do you have any suggestions for how chiropractic can work with the mindset, and also maybe to have some thoughts about maybe making different unusual price structure, like suggestions or ideas for what do you think, the things you've seen actually work in practice when working with other chiropractors?
Yeah, this is all headspace stuff. And there's nothing that is a more combustible combination than fees and self-esteem and all the rest of it. One of the biggest mistakes chiropractors make, particularly young chiropractors, is that they attempt to x-ray the patient's pocketbook to determine how much they should charge, or they soften their recommendations so that the patient doesn't just reject them out of hand. And here's the thing. Part of it is that you've attracted patients who aren't interested in healthcare. They're interested in pain relief and to get it as cheaply as possible. So part of it is you get enough patients, one after another, who doesn't want real health, they want pain relief, then you already have misconception of who's out there in your community to accept chiropractic care. Because here's the truth. Something we value, we come up with a way of affording. And I don't care if it's a hobby or a sport pursuit or a luxury automobile or anything else. If we value it, we come up with a way to pay for it. So what many chiropractors are encountering, and maybe they don't realize this, but they're encountering people who don't really value health. They want to be pain-free as quickly as possible and as cheaply as possible. This goes back to the whole notion of attracting patients who want relief, the therapeutic chiropractic that I mentioned earlier. This is headspace stuff. That is, you cannot charge and collect a penny more than what you think you're worth. So part of this goes back to having a profound respect and appreciation for the real value of chiropractic. And I think what happens for many is that chiropractic seems easy to deliver the care to. We don't value it because it's so easy to do and so seemingly repetitive. So this has to do with your headspace about money. There is the quick fix other than the realization that someone's going to be the cheapest chiropractor in town and someone's going to be the most expensive. And you want to be choosing very carefully which one you show up. Tragically, many look around and see what others are charging and simply charge the same amount. And this is a path to obscurity, frankly. So this is a whole seminar, and I'm not sure that I can answer all of that.
This is great. Yeah, I'm sorry for the little big questions. To make it a little bit easier, if you met a younger chiropractor who's setting up their practice in a new town, in this day, what are the best ways for that person to market themselves? Or do you have suggestions what they can do? It's quite a big one too.
That's a big one as well.
Yeah.
Well, here's the short story. The short story is you want to encounter as many strangers as possible so that you can tell the story of what chiropractic is. Okay, that's the short story. Now, that can manifest in many, 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 many different ways. If I were running the zoo, I would hold seminars. I would conduct lectures. I would get in front of groups of people and tell the story of chiropractic, neutralize and dissolve some of the myths and misconceptions about chiropractic. But people can do that on Instagram or Facebook or other social media outlets. They can certainly do it by posting blog posts and all the rest. I mean, there's a lot of ways of doing that. I think the real issue here is, are you really clear about what chiropractic is and isn't? And are you persuasive and compelling when you make an argument for chiropractic? That's it. Because what you're looking for is to attract your tribe, people who resonate with your particular worldview. And the problem that so many chiropractors face is that when you show up as a back doctor, you're likely to attract patients who have back pain. Okay, that's kind of the first right answer. That's great. But you're not attracting people who want better health. And so it goes back to this back pain, better health notion again. It's a recurring theme. And you can help a lot of people with a form of physical medicine where you're treating symptoms. But the people who are spending money at the yoga studio, the Pilates studio, they're runners, they're marathoners, they're eating organic fruits and vegetables and free-ranging chickens and all the rest, who have money to spend on healthcare, don't see back doctors as a part of their healthcare team. They drive past the chiropractor because chiropractors are about back pain. This has to do with identity, something we discussed at the very beginning of this conversation. Who are you? What do you do? Who do you want to help? I'm not sure that, but I would say this, is that most chiropractors lack a strategy for obtaining new patients. In other words, they use tactic after tactic after tactic after tactic and attempt to get strangers into their practice rather than having an overarching strategy, which is supported by tactics that amplify or complement that overarching strategy. When you go tactic to tactic to tactic, you end up after 5, 10, 20 years with no equity in a brand. One of the wise choices that a new chiropractor would want to make is, number one, what is my identity and what would be a strategy that would attract patients who would be attracted to that identity? And this is an advanced course in marketing, to do it proper. Chiropractors don't get any marketing advice at chiropractic college. They don't get any. They get the skills, but they don't get what it takes to attract a tribe of people who want those skills. And so that's really the issue here in play.
Excellent. Very good. What are, just for a chiropractor who hasn't found his or her identity, what are some ways if they want to work on it and find it, what are some ways where can they start?
The most important issue of all, and is something I just brushed up against at the very beginning of our talk, is that one's identity is based upon one's purpose. And I made the quick observation that a chiropractor's purpose is not to adjust. Now, I hope chiropractors do adjust, But what you do is not your purpose. What you do is a way of advancing or completing or manifesting your purpose. So, for example, my purpose, even though I'm in patient education, I do coaching with chiropractors and all the rest, my purpose is to serve God by providing information that helps alleviate unnecessary suffering. That's my purpose. That's not something I broadcast widely. I mean, one's purpose is a very intimate, personal thing. Finding one's purpose is one of the most important tasks that any of us can ever pursue. Understanding your purpose helps you say yes to on-purpose activities and opportunities and helps you say no to off-purpose opportunities. Finding one's purpose, one's North Star, if you will, that guiding principle, that lighthouse that guides you in all of your daily decisions is crucial. And that is a whole seminar in itself. But
Yeah.
identity is based upon purpose. And those who have a very clear identity know what their purpose is.
What are the common factors for people who are like after 20 and 30 years still have a burning desire to go into their office and take care of the patients? What are their commonalities?
The commonalities of individuals who are passionate after 20 or 30 years, they have very clear boundaries because they're not in burnout, they're in passion. So they're living their purpose. That's about their identity. These are individuals who do not take patients home with them, like talk about them at the dinner table, that sort of thing. These are individuals who know their place. They know their lot. They know what they do. They're comfortable in their skin. They have a clear identity. They've got great boundaries. These are individuals who are living the dream. Many of them that I meet are not heavily saddled with personal debt. So they're out of debt. Have the freedom to say no to off-purpose activities or invitation. They are disciplined. They are comfortable in their skin. And this is something that takes time. This is about maturity. This is about the slings and arrows and death by 1,000 cuts one has survived to get to that level. There's no shortcut. It's about having clarity about what one's purpose is.
If I've been in a practice for a couple of years, and I have a dream of being that purposeful, identity-filled chiropractor in 30 years. What are some like overriding advice or things that I should be aware of? Off-purpose traps, or what should be if there was 3 things I should be super aware of, what are those things?
Yikes. I think, I don't know if there's 3, but the first thing that comes to my mind is to make sure that every patient understands that the hero in this relationship is the patient. In other words, it is the self-healing qualities and capacities of the body, which is the hero. So the results that patients experience, the hero is the innate ability and capability of self-healing. A chiropractor with clear boundaries understands this and is very quick to, when patients gush about the success that they're enjoying in chiropractic, the chiropractor makes it very clear that the hero in this relationship is the capacity of the body to self-heal if the interference is reduced. That would be probably number 1. Number 2 is the chiropractor understands that unlike medicine, where the intervention, the drug, the surgery, the doctor is the hero, in chiropractic, it is a partnership. That is, a patient has been trained by the medical community to want to delegate their headache to the doctor. Hey, fix my headache, and when it's done, give it back to me so I can get on with my life. That's a metaphor. But my point is that the chiropractor has a job to do and the patient has a job to do. Successful long-term patient relationships are born when the chiropractor is successful in enrolling patients in a partnership. So many patients come into the practice thinking that the healing that they're seeking, the relief they want, occurs on the adjusting table because they have been trained to trust the drug, the surgery, the intervention, and in this case, the adjustment. That's fine, but there's a job the patient must do between visits if they want to get maximum results in the shortest amount of time. So the chiropractor enrolls the patient in drinking more water, getting more exercise, getting better sleep, getting off of industrial seed oils, becoming more metabolically flexible, getting a sufficient sunshine, being grounded, earthed with being in nature, and all the rest. I mean, the list is fairly long, but the key is to try to enroll the patient in a partnership, and that they don't have to, or nor can you demand that the patient follow through with these suggestions, but you have a moral responsibility to communicate what those responsibilities are. Because if you've got patients, I mean, if it's true that subluxation is the body's gorgeous response, defensive response to accommodate physical, chemical, or emotional stress, and if those physical, chemical, or emotional stressors are still present in the patient's life, then your intervention is going to be palliative at best. It just won't last. It'll take a long time. So you want to really help bring the patient's awareness to these other activities beyond the spine that affect their overall health and the margin of health that they have and can express through their body.
What do you have any favorite metaphors for explaining, like if I would explain chiropractic to a patient? Do you have some? What are your favorite metaphors?
Oh, well, that's easy. That's the safety pin cycle. You can get these large safety pins. They're about, 5 inches or so. I don't know what that is in centimeters. I would use a safety pin to explain the afferent, efferent role of the nervous system. I would unclasp the safety pin to demonstrate interference of either the afferent or efferent nerve flow. And then I would explain what the adjustment is by reclasping the safety pin. I think that's the simplest and easiest way to communicate chiropractic in my experience.
Well, thank you so much, Bill. It's been absolutely wonderful. And for all of you people out there who hasn't read all of his books, order them online. That's my little commercial for you. If I would try to sum up some of the things you've said, so it is super important to have a clear identity and finding your purpose, and to be clear on make your boundaries really clear.
Yep.
Those are those are the big things you need to figure out if you're going to succeed in practice.
Yeah, I agree. That would kind of sum it up.
Thank you. I'm so happy that you took the time. It's been an honor to have you here. And I am so grateful for all the time you spent helping chiropractors become more excited about their life as a chiropractor, and then helping all these patients that have better lives because of you.
Thank you. It was a blast.